Most people spend their lives chasing attention, but only a rare few build a life that naturally attracts it. The difference begins in silence, in the moments when no one is watching and no applause exists. Most people wake up thinking about who they need to impress, who they need to prove wrong, who they need to become for the world to finally accept them. But a soulful woman moves differently. She does not build her identity around faces, opinions, or temporary validation. She builds it around purpose. When you start with who, you are constantly adjusting yourself to fit expectations. You become reactive, always shifting, always uncertain. One day you feel powerful. The next day you feel invisible, because your foundation is built on something that was never stable to begin with. But when you start with why, everything changes. Your decisions gain clarity. Your energy becomes grounded. Your presence stops asking for permission. A woman who knows her why does not chase rooms that do not align with her spirit. She does not shrink to fit into spaces that cannot recognize her depth. She walks away without noise, without explanation, because she understands that misalignment is not rejection, it is direction. There is a different kind of confidence that comes from purpose. It is not loud, it is not performative, and it does not need to be announced. It shows up in the way she carries herself, in the way she speaks with intention, and in the way she chooses peace over proving a point. People can feel it even if they cannot explain it. That is the power of starting with why. Most people are addicted to being seen, but a soulful woman is committed to being real. She is not here to impress everyone, she's here to express something meaningful. That shift changes everything. Because when your focus is expression, you stop fearing judgment. You stop overthinking every move. You stop diluting your truth just to be accepted. Starting with why also means accepting that not everyone will understand you, and that is not your burden to carry. Depth is not meant for everyone. Some people are only meant to experience you on the surface, and that is okay. You do not need to make yourself smaller just so others can feel comfortable in their limitations. There will be moments when the world tries to pull you back into the cycle of comparison, into the noise of who is doing better, who is getting more attention, who is being chosen. But a soulful woman does not measure her worth against others. She measures it against her own growth, her own alignment, her own truth. She understands that purpose is not something you find once and hold forever. It is something you live, something you refine, something you reconnect with again and again. That is why she invests in herself. Not just externally, but internally. She asks better questions. She reflects deeper. She listens to her intuition, even when it is inconvenient. When you start with why, you stop waiting for validation and start creating value. You stop chasing attention and start attracting alignment. You stop performing for the world and start building something that actually means something. And that is what makes her rare. Not the way she looks, not the way she speaks, but the way she knows exactly why she exists and refuses to betray it for temporary approval. People may forget your words, but they never forget the energy you made them feel. Before a single word leaves your mouth, something far more powerful has already entered the room. Your energy. It introduces you before your name is spoken. It tells your story before you explain it. And it leaves an impression long after you are gone. Most people focus on what to say, how to sound, how to be perceived. But a soulful woman understands something deeper. She knows that communication begins long before language. Energy is not something you can fake for long. It is a reflection of what is happening within you. If there is insecurity, people feel it. If there is peace, people feel that too. If there is authenticity, it becomes undeniable. That is why a soulful woman does not obsess over perfect words. She works on her inner world because she knows that her outer presence will always mirror it. There is a quiet power in walking into a space without the need to prove anything. No rush to speak, no pressure to impress, no urge to dominate attention, just presence. Grounded, aware, and intentional. That kind of energy shifts the atmosphere without force. People notice not because she demands attention, but because her presence feels different. Most people try to control perception by managing their words, but words without aligned energy create confusion. You can say all the right things and still feel off to someone. You can speak with confidence, but if it is not rooted in truth, it will not land. A soulful woman understands that alignment is everything. When her thoughts, emotions, and actions are in sync, her presence becomes clear and powerful. She is intentional about what she allows into her space because everything influences energy. The conversations she entertains, the environment she stays in, the people she keeps close. She is not being distant, she is being selective. Protecting her energy is not selfish, it is necessary. There is also strength in silence. Not every moment requires a response. Not every situation deserves her words. Sometimes the most powerful statement is the energy you hold when you choose not to engage. A soulful woman knows when to speak, but more importantly, she knows when not to. That restraint carries weight. Energy also reveals truth faster than words ever can. You can sense when someone is genuine and when they are performing. You can feel when a connection is real and when it is forced. A soulful woman trusts that awareness. She does not ignore what she feels just because something looks good on the surface. She listens to the unspoken. This is why her presence feels different. It is not rushed, not scattered, not dependent on external validation. It is steady. It is intentional. It is rooted in self-awareness. She does not need to raise her voice to be heard because her energy already speaks clearly. In a world full of noise, where everyone is trying to say more, do more, and prove more, she chooses depth. She chooses alignment. She chooses to become someone whose presence communicates strength, peace, and authenticity without needing constant explanation. Because at the end of the day, words can be rehearsed, but energy cannot be hidden. And that is what people remember. Comfort keeps you accepted, but growth makes you unforgettable. Most people build their lives around what feels safe. Familiar routines, predictable choices, environments that never challenge them to become more. It feels secure, it feels easy, and for a moment, it feels enough. But a soulful woman sees through that illusion. She understands that comfort can quietly become a cage, a place where potential slowly fades because nothing is demanding it to rise. Growth asks for something different. It asks for courage when things are uncertain, discipline when motivation fades, and faith when results are not immediate. A soulful woman does not wait until she feels ready, because she knows readiness is often just fear wearing a softer name. She moves anyway. Not recklessly, but intentionally, with the understanding that every step forward shapes her into someone stronger. There is a quiet bravery in choosing growth. It means stepping into rooms where you are not the most experienced. It means allowing yourself to be seen while you are still learning. It means facing parts of yourself that are uncomfortable to acknowledge. Most people avoid these moments, but she leans into them. Not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Comfort tells you to stay the same so you can be accepted. Growth asks you to evolve, even if it means outgrowing people, places, and versions of yourself that once felt like home. That transition is never simple. There are moments of doubt, moments where looking back feels easier than moving forward, but a soulful woman does not confuse temporary discomfort with the wrong direction. She understands that discomfort is often proof that she is expanding. She does not measure her life by how easy it is. She measures it by how much she is becoming. Every challenge becomes a mirror, showing her where she can improve, where she can strengthen, where she can rise. She does not take setbacks personally. She takes them seriously. She learns, she adjusts, and she continues. There is also discipline in her growth. It is not just about big, visible changes. It is about the small decisions made consistently, choosing to show up when no one is watching, choosing to stay focused when distractions are everywhere, choosing to keep going when progress feels slow. That consistency builds a foundation that cannot be shaken by temporary emotions. A soulful woman does not chase comfort because she knows comfort does not create confidence. Confidence is built through experience, through overcoming, through proving to yourself that you can handle more than you once believed. Every time she steps outside her comfort zone, she expands her sense of what is possible. She also understands that growth is not a destination. It is a continuous process. There is no final version of herself that she is trying to reach. There is only a commitment to keep evolving, to keep learning, to keep becoming more aligned with who she truly is. That mindset keeps her grounded and focused, even when the path is unclear. In a world that encourages staying where it is easy, she chooses the path that challenges her, not for recognition, not for validation, but because she refuses to settle for a life that does not reflect her full potential. And that is what makes her rare. Not her comfort, not her ease, but her willingness to grow even when it would be simpler to stay the same. You cannot lead a life with clarity if you are still negotiating with your own discipline. Leadership is often misunderstood as something external, something that begins when others start following. But a soulful woman understands a deeper truth. Leadership begins in private, in the unseen moments where no one is watching, where there is no applause, no recognition, no external reward. It begins with how she leads herself. Most people try to control outcomes without first mastering their own habits, emotions, and decisions. They want influence without responsibility, results without structure. But a woman who leads herself first knows that everything she creates externally is a reflection of what she manages internally. If there is chaos within, it will eventually show outside. If there is clarity within, it will shape everything she touches. Self-leadership is not about perfection. It is about accountability. It is about being honest with yourself when it would be easier to make excuses. It is about choosing discipline over distraction, even when no one would notice the difference. A soulful woman does not wait for motivation to show up. She builds systems, routines, and standards that guide her even on the days she does not feel like showing up. There is power in consistency, not the loud kind that seeks attention, but the quiet kind that builds strength over time. The small promises she keeps to herself become the foundation of her confidence. Every time she follows through, she reinforces trust within herself, and that trust becomes unshakable. She understands that leading herself also means managing her emotions without being controlled by them. Feelings are real, but they are not always reliable guides for action. There are days when doubt appears, when fear tries to take control, when comfort whispers that it is easier to stop. But she does not surrender to every emotion that arises. She acknowledges it, learns from it, and continues forward with intention. A soulful woman also sets boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect her focus and energy. She knows that saying yes to everything is not strength, it is a lack of direction. Every no she chooses creates space for what truly matters. That clarity allows her to move with purpose instead of being pulled in every direction. She does not seek control over others because she has already taken responsibility for herself. That is what makes her presence powerful. It is grounded, stable, and focused. People are naturally drawn to that kind of energy because it feels secure, not forced. There's also humility in her leadership. She knows that growth is ongoing, that there is always more to learn, more to refine, more to understand. She listens, she reflects, and she adapts without losing her core values. That balance between confidence and humility makes her influence genuine. Leading herself first means she does not depend on external validation to stay committed. She does not need constant encouragement to keep going. Her drive comes from within, from a clear understanding of who she is becoming and why it matters. That internal alignment keeps her steady even when external circumstances are uncertain. In a world where many are trying to lead others without first leading themselves, she stands apart, not because she demands attention, but because she embodies discipline, clarity, and responsibility in a way that speaks without needing to be announced. And that is what makes her different. Not the way she controls others, but the way she has mastered control over her self-attention can be given to anyone. But depth is only experienced by those who are real. In a world where everyone is trying to be seen, a soulful woman is focused on being understood. There is a difference, and that difference changes everything. Attention is loud, fast, and temporary. It comes and goes, shifting with trends, opinions, and moments. But depth is quiet, steady, and lasting. It is not given easily, and it is not maintained without intention. Most people are conditioned to chase attention, to say more, show more, prove more, hoping that visibility will somehow translate into value. But a soulful woman sees beyond that illusion. She knows that being noticed does not mean being known, and being known does not always mean being valued. So she chooses a different path. She invests in substance, in conversations that mean something, in connections that go beyond the surface, in moments that cannot be replicated or faked. She is not interested in being everywhere or with everyone. She is intentional about where she places her time and energy, because she understands that both are limited and powerful. There is a certain patience required for depth. It does not happen instantly. It cannot be rushed or forced. It requires presence, honesty, and vulnerability. A soulful woman is willing to sit in that space, even when it feels uncomfortable. She would rather experience something real and imperfect than something polished and empty. She does not perform for approval. She does not adjust her personality to fit every room. She does not dilute her truth just to keep people interested. That kind of authenticity naturally filters who stays and who leaves, and she is at peace with that, because she understands that not everyone is meant to experience her fully. Her circle may be small, but it is intentional. The people around her do not just know her highlights, they understand her depth. They have seen her growth, her challenges, her evolution. That kind of connection cannot be replaced by numbers or attention. It carries a different weight, a different kind of fulfillment. A soulful woman also recognizes that depth begins within. It is not just about how she connects with others, but how she connects with herself. She takes time to reflect, to understand her thoughts, her emotions, her patterns. She does not run from silence, she uses it. That inner awareness allows her to show up in the world with clarity and intention. There will always be opportunities to chase attention. Quick validation, temporary recognition, moments that feel good but do not last. But she is not distracted by them. She measures her life differently, not by how many people are watching, but by how meaningful her experiences are. She understands that depth is not always easy. It requires honesty, and honesty can be uncomfortable. It requires vulnerability, and vulnerability can feel risky. But she also knows that without those things, nothing truly meaningful can exist. So she chooses depth again and again. in a world that rewards surface-level presence, she becomes rare by choosing substance, by valuing meaning over noise, connection over validation, truth over performance. And that is what sets her apart. Not how many people notice her, but how deeply she is felt by those who truly see her. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth is the moment your presence starts proving it for you. There's a quiet shift that happens when a woman realizes she no longer needs to convince anyone of who she is. No more over-explaining, no more over-giving, no more shrinking to make others comfortable. A soulful woman reaches a point where she understands that her presence as it is holds value. Not because everyone sees it, but because she does. Most people are conditioned to believe they must earn their place in every room, that they must speak louder, do more, give more, and become more just to be accepted. But that constant effort creates exhaustion. It creates a version of yourself that is always performing, always adjusting, always seeking approval. A soulful woman steps out of that cycle. She does not enter spaces asking to be validated. She enters with self-awareness. She knows what she brings, not in an arrogant way, but in a grounded and honest way. She understands her strengths, she accepts her imperfections, and she carries both with quiet confidence. That balance creates a presence that feels real, not forced. There is power in no longer chasing. When you stop chasing attention, you start attracting alignment. When you stop trying to fit everywhere, you naturally find where you belong. A soulful woman does not need to be everywhere to feel important. She would rather be in the right spaces than in many spaces that do not recognize her worth. She also understands that not being chosen by everyone is not a loss. It is clarity. It is direction. It is protection from environments and people that cannot meet her where she stands. Instead of taking it personally, she sees it as a natural filter. The wrong places will not hold her, and the right ones will not miss her. Her presence is calm, not because life is always easy, but because she has learned to anchor herself within. She does not rely on constant external reassurance to feel secure. She builds that security through self-respect, through boundaries, through the way she shows up for herself consistently. A soulful woman does not argue for her value. She does not try to prove her worth through endless effort. She understands that the right people do not need convincing. They recognize, they appreciate, they align, and if they do not, she does not stay where she has to be questioned. There is also strength in her stillness. She does not feel the need to fill every silence or respond to every situation. She knows that her energy, her presence, and her way of being communicate more than constant words ever could. That stillness is not emptiness, it is confidence. She trusts that what is meant for her will not require her to become someone she is not. That she does not have to sacrifice her authenticity to be accepted. That she does not have to compete for a place that is already aligned with her. In a world that often pushes people to prove themselves endlessly, she chooses a different path. She chooses to be rather than to perform, to exist in her truth rather than chase approval. And that is what makes her presence powerful. Not because she demands attention, but because she no longer needs it to know her worth.